A lot of people had a lot to say in the press about the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith. To each his own, but I'd hardly call the 2024 series a remake. The dynamic between Jane and John Smith of 2024 was a big topic of discussion, and that's exactly what I want to talk about today. What they did well, what I didn't love. Will there be a season 2? And will I be watching it? This series was, probably just shy of 8 hours. I'm gonna break it up in quadrants for you guys, otherwise we would literally be here forever. I'm sipping a golden milk latte today while we discuss. So for those who don't know, the 2005 action romance holy shit. About a couple in a stagnant marriage pretending to lead mundane lives, but in reality are both hitters. They're given the same target, they miss the target, and if they get ID'd by the other hitter, then they may get killed, so they have to kill before they get killed. Turns out the killers are the spouses, Jane and John Smith. The 2024 series is about two lonely strangers who decide to give up their lives to become partners in espionage and marriage. Cousins, not sisters. Donald Glover and Francesca Sloane did their big one with this one. They showed homage to the film, but it was not too much. It was not Mean Girls 2024. Oh my god. Spoiler alert. Just a heads up, spoiler alert. So, for the first quadrant, the awkward tension between these two people was so raw and so thick, you could cut it with a dull butter knife. As the audience, you meet them at the same time they meet each other, so you really feel like you are growing with them. In the very first episode, we're kind of meeting them through their questionnaire as they meet each other. We learn that Jane is a very type A person. She's very structured. She's cold and distant. You know what? I would even hardly call her cold, but she definitely keeps those walls up. And we learn that John is the 180 of that. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and you know what they say, opposites attract or whatever. Jane makes it very clear she's here for the money, and John makes it very clear that, yeah, he wanted the money, but he also thought this was married at first sight. As the process goes along, cold Jane starts to warm up just a little bit. She's just getting friendly, you know what I mean? We start to see her laugh and stuff. I really like that side of her, and I think John liked that side of her too, but one thing you cannot do with a woman is confuse friendliness with romance. If she's being friendly, she's being your friend. Word to the wise. But as she starts to open up, we start to see their banter. We start to see a little chemistry. Nothing that's giving she wants to jump his bones, but we're starting to see how they communicate together in these tough situations. And it feels like maybe even the company kind of knew that they had to work together in a romantic sense, because when it's not right at home, it's not going to be right on the job, which is probably why they got their first fail in the first quadrant and found out they only had 2 more remaining. This put a little bit more pressure on them in a way that I think opened Jane up more than just her heart, because they then consummated the marriage. Next quadrant, the two start to fall for each other. You heard that right. They actually were surveilling a couple. Their marriage was on the last toe. And the moment Jane said, "Let's never be like them," that's when the universe forces you into that person's shoes. For real. Because that is when shit hit the fan. It was just like, damn. It was genuinely good for about 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Truly. This changed the dynamic between them, because when Jane starts to latch on and open up, that is when John, dare I say, became more distant. It was genuinely like watching anxious avoidant loop. Literally, John ghosted her for half of the episode during a mission and didn't call her until he was like near death. That's what they be doing too sometimes. It is just camera overheated. We're back. Jane said she cares about him. So shortly after this, they meet another Jane and John. And Jane and John Smith means that you guys work for the same company. Now, the Jane and John we know are definitely giving a militant aura about them. They are definitely not hitters. They meet another Jane and John who are older than them and can give them some true guidance. They're so ready to be so open and honest about their experience and learn and grow and have some mentorship. But it turns out all named folk ain't you kinfolk? Despite them having a terrible interaction with Jane and John, they get closer to one another and they even drop the L word. Here's the thing. We've been seeing them grow. We've been there with them the whole time. As an audience member, did I feel the love? No. Do I think they care for each other? Yes. Do I think they like each other a lot? Yes. Love? I guess love is subjective. Next quadrant. They go on an out-of-country mission together and the lovebirds are chirping so loud at them after, their near-death bonding experience. And the dynamic shifts here because John buys them a home out of the country, in Italy, a beautiful country. He's never seen the home before he bought it. So this raises some concerns on her end, but she communicated amazingly, if you ask me. He wasn't feeling good after this interaction because I think he wanted her to be so excited and she didn't give him that reaction because you bought a house that you've never seen in person. In a foreign country. But they were able to maneuver and get out of that situation, but not without him mentioning that he wants to put a baby inside of her. Jane just decided 40 minutes ago she actually wanted to be married. She just caught up to your speed. And then he's a mile ahead again. It's just... So that causes issues. Not only that, the boss is messaging her separately. The company's seeing the advances that she's making. Basically, they ask her if she would like to replace her John, essentially leaving him behind to rise up in her career. Just after he'd asked her for a baby. The chapters are different. Whenever you are admitting a truth to somebody, I don't care how well you think you're doing it, there becomes an invisible blockage between you two. Like, the energy's different. Things were in the air and they knew that, which is why baby girl Sarah Paulson comes in as the therapist. She is trying to doctor them back to health. The first session of therapy, it always starts off great. They always start off hopeful. They're sitting so close to each other. They're making eye contact. But as the sessions progress, they get further and further and further, and the scene gets darker and darker and darker. They start to realize we don't actually know if we're gonna make it out of this one together. They're not on the same page. But can we be shocked? They're opposite people. John is upset because he felt like the leader at the beginning of their marriage, and he's feeling like she's starting to take the reins on things. And to be honest, if you're not in something that's growing, you're in something that's dying. This girl wants to get better. She wants to grow. But Jane doesn't want to have to sacrifice her growth because he's not growing at the same pace. They're working on something, they're trying to hold something together, but it doesn't really feel like the love is there. Maybe because they're forced to be doing this for a job, they're not really in love. This brings us to the last quadrant. They're sleeping apart. They're barely speaking. They have one fail remaining before God knows what happens to them. And John was given a task that he's taken over a month to complete, and it turns out he is growing an emotional connection to the task, who's a woman. He's basically emotionally cheating. They can't get it together, they can't work as a team, and that results in their final fail. And the final fail causes John to say, I'm walking away from this marriage. John, if you can walk. You guys work for an espionage company. I don't know why you thought it'd be that easy. They're given their final task, and it is to terminate the other Smith. That's a part that kind of pays homage to the film, and a lot of the final episode did. I'm gonna leave you with this. The 2024 Mr. and Mrs. Smith series has left us with the biggest cliffhanger of the 2020s. I don't know if there's gonna be a season 2. I don't know anything. I'm like rewatching this series, just trying to pick up on pieces. I don't know. This show does not feel like a remake. And to that I say, that's how you do a remake. I want to give this show an 8 out of 10. I loved the banter. The chemistry was great. I don't feel like they were in love. Honestly, the first time I watched it, I really stopped liking Jane. And I don't want to dislike her. But yeah, I was like, I don't get this bitch. But while their relationship and their dynamic was very weird to me, it was theirs. Love is weirder, whatever Shakespeare said. They acted down. All of the big name guest stars in there, amazing. Please watch this show, form your own opinions. Come back and give me a comment. after you've watched it. If you haven't watched it still, give me a comment, give me a like, give me a share, give me a subscribe. Donald Glover, you did amazing. Maya, you did amazing. If you haven't already checked out Sunday Morning Juice, the latest blog post about Little White Lies will genuinely blow your mind because it blew mine. And I'll see you Monday.